The night sky above Samantha Wright's cabin filled with strange lights. She stepped onto her wooden porch, narrowing her eyes at the unusual glow. It wasn't the aurora or a storm. These lights moved with purpose. Samantha lived alone in the Appalachian woods. 5 years ago, she had left her job as an aerospace engineer to build this simple life. Most people thought she was crazy to give up a 6-figure salary for a cabin without running water. But Samantha found peace here, away from the noise and stress of modern life. She watched as the light grew brighter, casting long shadows across her garden. Her hand reached for the hunting rifle she kept by the door, though some deep instinct told her it would be useless against whatever approached. The air hummed with energy. Wind swirled around her, picking up leaves and twigs in a miniature tornado. Samantha's long brown hair whipped across her face as she braced herself against the cabin wall. Then she saw it. A massive ship, at least the size of a football field, hovering silently above the clearing in front of her home. It glowed with a pale blue light and made no sound at all. "This isn't happening," she whispered, but her engineer's mind was already analyzing what she saw. The ship defied everything she knew about aerodynamics and propulsion. It simply shouldn't be able to hover like that. A beam of light shot down from the center of the craft, touching the ground about 20 feet from where she stood. Samantha considered running back inside, grabbing her emergency pack, and escaping into the deeper woods. But curiosity kept her feet planted firmly on the porch. 3 figures appeared in the light. They weren't human. That much was clear even from a distance. Tall and thin, with skin that reflected the blue glow of their ship, they moved with strange grace. Their heads were too large, their limbs too long. They wore what looked like armor made of a material that shifted colors with each movement. One of them pointed a device in her direction. Samantha felt her muscles freeze. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even blink. Pure panic raced through her mind as she realized she was completely helpless. The aliens approached slowly, studying her with large black eyes that showed no emotion. The tallest one spoke, the sounds unlike any language Samantha had ever heard, clicking and humming tones that seemed impossible for a human throat to make. A smaller device in the alien's hand translated, "Primitive female specimen. Isolated habitat. Suitable for behavioral study." Anger flashed through Samantha. Primitive. She had designed navigation systems for spacecraft. She had 3 patents to her name. She chose this life. She wasn't some cavewoman they had discovered. But she couldn't voice her outrage. The paralysis held her completely still as the alien circled her, scanning her body with various instruments. "Subject shows higher brain development than expected for an isolated dwelling human," said the smaller alien. "Curious. Irrelevant," replied the tall one. "All Earth humans are primitive by Vextai standards. Collection authorized." The third alien approached with something that looked like a metal collar. Samantha's mind screamed in protest as they attached it to her neck. The moment it clicked shut, darkness swept over her. She awoke in a room with transparent walls. The floor beneath her was soft but strange, not quite solid, not quite liquid. Beyond the walls, she could see other enclosures, some containing animals, others holding what appeared to be plants from Earth and elsewhere. A human zoo. She realized with growing horror. They had put her in a human zoo. An alien face appeared at the wall, studying her. It wore a different uniform than those who had captured her. This one had markings on its armor that suggested rank or importance. Subject 437A. It said through a translation device. Primitive variant of species. Limited cognitive potential. Samantha kept her face blank, hiding the storm of thoughts behind her eyes. They thought she was primitive. Fine. Let them think that. She would watch. She would learn. And when they weren't expecting it, she would show them just how wrong they were. Samantha spent 3 days studying her new prison. The clear walls showed her a massive room filled with dozens of habitats like hers. Each one held different creatures or plants, all neatly labeled in the strange Vextai language. Her enclosure was a poor copy of an Earth forest. The trees looked right from a distance, but their bark felt wrong. The stream that ran through one corner had water that moved too slowly. Even the air smelled slightly off, clean but lifeless. On the fourth day, she discovered she wasn't the only human aboard. In a habitat across from hers, a middle-aged man paced back and forth. 2 enclosures down, a woman with gray-streaked hair sat beside a fake campfire. Samantha pressed her hands against the clear wall and called out, "Hey, can you hear me?" The man looked up, surprised. He rushed to the wall of his own habitat and shouted something, but no sound reached her. The walls blocked all noise from passing between enclosures. Later that day, a new alien entered the large room. This one was smaller than the others, with lighter-colored skin and more delicate features. It approached Samantha's habitat carrying a flat device. Unlike the others, who barely glanced at her, this alien watched her closely. A section of wall slid open, and the alien stepped inside. Samantha backed away, looking for anything she could use as a weapon. "No harm," said the alien through its translator. "Study only." "Who are you?" Samantha demanded. "Why am I here?" The alien tilted its head. "I am Dr. Neravek. You are research subject." "I'm not a lab rat," Samantha said, crossing her arms. "I'm a human being. My name is Samantha Wright." "Samantha," the alien repeated, the name sounding strange through the translator. "I study Earth species. You interesting sample." Dr. Neravek placed the flat device on the ground. It projected a series of simple shapes and patterns into the air. "Complete puzzle," the alien instructed. Samantha looked at the floating shapes. It was a basic intelligence test, the kind you might give to a child. A quick scan told her the solution immediately. She needed to arrange the shapes by size and color to form a pattern. A plan formed in her mind. If they thought she was primitive, they would be less careful around her. She intentionally moved the shapes in the wrong order, pretending to struggle with the simple puzzle. Dr. Neravek made notes on another device. "Try again," the alien said. Samantha failed the test 2 more times before finally solving it, making sure to appear relieved and proud when she did. The alien seemed satisfied and moved on to other tests. Memory games, reflex challenges, basic counting. Each time, Samantha carefully underperformed, showing just enough intelligence to seem slightly above average, but nothing that would reveal her true abilities. As Dr. Neravek packed up the testing equipment, Samantha asked, "The other humans, who are they?" The alien hesitated, then answered, "Male is Alan Miller, teacher of young humans. Female is Linda Pearson, grows plant food." "Can I talk to them?" Samantha asked. "Not permitted," Dr. Neravek replied. "Specimens kept separate." When the alien left, Samantha smiled to herself. She now had names for her fellow captives, and she had successfully convinced at least one of her captors that she posed no threat. That night, as the lights in the big room dimmed to simulate Earth's darkness, Samantha carefully examined every inch of her habitat. The aliens had made one serious mistake. They had included real Earth plants in her enclosure, including a type of bamboo that grew near the water. With patience, bamboo could be shaped into tools. With tools, she might find weaknesses in her prison. And Dr. Neravek's testing device had given her glimpses of Vexte technology. Glimpses her engineer's mind was already breaking down and understanding. Samantha lay on her bed of artificial moss and stared up at the distant ceiling of the massive ship. The Vexte thought they were studying her, but she was studying them just as carefully. "Primitive, am I?" she whispered to herself. "We'll see about that." 2 weeks passed on the alien ship. Each day followed the same pattern. Dr. Neravek would come to test Samantha. Other aliens would bring food and check the habitat. Samantha would carefully act just smart enough to keep their interest, but not smart enough to raise suspicion. During this time, she worked on her bamboo tools at night when the observation rooms were empty. She managed to make a thin, strong rod that she could use to reach things outside her enclosure when no one was watching. Dr. Naravek visited more often than the other aliens. Today, she brought a new device, a small screen with Vextai symbols. "Learn words," the alien said, pointing to the screen. Samantha pretended to struggle with the simple language lesson. In truth, she was beginning to understand the patterns in the Vextai writing system. Each symbol represented not just a sound, but a concept. It was complex, but her engineer's mind saw the logic in it. "This difficult," Samantha said, playing her role. Dr. Naravek made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Try again." "Important." "Why important?" Samantha asked, genuinely curious. The alien hesitated. "Ship go to new place soon. Permanent place for specimens." A chill ran down Samantha's spine. They were taking her somewhere she might never escape from. Her timeline had just gotten much shorter. "What new place?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Homeworld colony. Big place for study all species." Dr. Naravek pointed to a symbol on the screen. "This means travel. Try." Samantha copied the symbol carefully, her mind racing. While she traced the alien letters, she noticed Dr. Naravek had left another device on the edge of the habitat. It looked like the communication tools the other aliens carried. After the lesson, Dr. Naravek seemed distracted by a message on her own device. She packed up quickly, forgetting the small communicator she had placed down. Samantha kept her face neutral, not looking at the forgotten device. When Dr. Naravek left, she waited a full hour before approaching it, aware that cameras might be watching. Finally, she picked it up, hiding it inside her habitat's small cave. That night, she studied it carefully. The device was locked, but Samantha recognized its design. It was similar to tablets she had worked with on Earth, just far more advanced. By morning, she had figured out the basic unlock pattern by studying the smudges on its surface. The Vextai might be advanced, but they still touched their screens with their fingers, leaving traces of oil behind. When the device activated, a world of information opened to her. Ship diagrams, crew locations, communication channels. The Vextai never expected a primitive to access their technology, so their security was minimal. Most exciting was a ship-wide announcement. Arrival at Vextai Colony Outpost 7 in 14 standard cycles. 2 weeks. She had 2 weeks to escape. The next day, when Dr. Naravek returned looking worried, Samantha pretended to find the device while cleaning her habitat. "You forget this," she said, holding it out. Dr. Naravek's large eyes widened. "You not use." "Not understand," Samantha lied. "Too hard for me." Relief washed over the alien's features. "Thank you. Would be trouble for me." That moment changed something between them. Dr. Naravek began to speak more openly, explaining things about the ship and the Vextai that she shouldn't have shared with a specimen. "Others think humans simple," Dr. Naravek admitted one day. "I think different. You not like other animals." "We're not animals at all," Samantha said carefully. "We build cities, write books, explore space." "Primitive space travel," Dr. Naravek said, but her tone was kinder than the other aliens. "But yes, not just animals." Samantha decided to take a risk. "The other humans, Alan and Linda, are they okay?" Dr. Naravek stared at her for a long moment. "They healthy? Not happy? Could I see them? Talk to them? Humans need other humans." The aliens seemed to consider this. "Not allowed, but..." She tapped something on her device. "Tonight. Short time only." After Dr. Naravek left, Samantha smiled to herself. She had gained the aliens' trust and would soon meet her fellow captives. The pieces of her plan were falling into place. That night, when most of the ship was in sleep cycle, a small door opened in the side of Samantha's habitat. Dr. Naravek stood there, nervously looking over her shoulder. "Quick," the alien whispered. "Follow." Silent. Samantha followed Dr. Naravek through dimly lit corridors. They passed sleeping quarters where other Vextai rested, and laboratories filled with strange equipment. Finally, they reached a small room where Alan Miller and Linda Pearson waited. Alan was a tall man with gray hair and glasses that the aliens had let him keep. Linda was shorter with strong arms that showed years of farm work. Both looked at Samantha with hope in their eyes. "Another human," Linda said, her voice cracking with emotion. "I was starting to think we were the only ones they took." "I'm Samantha," she said, shaking their hands. "And I think we can get out of here." Dr. Nerevek stood by the door. 20 minutes only. Then back to habitats. Alan shook his head. "Get out. Impossible. We're in space, for God's sake." "Not impossible," Samantha said. "Just difficult. I was an aerospace engineer before I moved to the woods. These aliens think we're all primitive, and that's their weakness." She quickly explained what she had learned from the stolen device, the layout of the ship, the minimal security, the approaching deadline of their arrival at the colony. "There are other humans on board too," Linda added. "I've seen them through the walls. At least 3 more. We'll need them," Samantha said. "Dr. Nerevek, can you bring the others here tomorrow night?" The alien looked uncomfortable. "Very dangerous, if discovered." "Please," Samantha said. "Our only chance is to work together." Dr. Nerevek finally nodded. "We'll try." The next night, they met again. This time, 3 more humans joined them. Paul Bennett, a construction worker with powerful shoulders; Grace Wong, a nurse with quick, steady hands; and William Davis, an older man who had worked as an electrician. "6 of us," Samantha said. "It's enough." She shared her plan. Using Dr. Nerevek's access codes, they would create a distraction in the ship's environmental systems. During the chaos, they would access the main control room and take over the ship's navigation. "We don't need to understand all their technology," Samantha explained. "We just need to control where the ship goes. Back to Earth." "And if we fail?" Paul asked. "Then we're no worse off than we are now," Samantha replied. "Headed for a life in an alien zoo." They spent the next week preparing. Dr. Nerevek smuggled small tools to them and taught them basic Vextai commands. Grace memorized the path to the medical bay where they could find weapons that released paralyzing gas. William studied diagrams of the ship's electrical systems, looking for vulnerabilities. Finally, the day came. The ship's announcement system informed the crew they were 3 days from the colony. It was now or never. When Dr. Nerevek gave the signal, William used a modified tool to access the environmental control panel in his habitat. With precise movements, he crossed wires that shouldn't be crossed. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. The temperature in the research wing plummeted to freezing, then shot up to uncomfortable heat. Oxygen levels fluctuated wildly. Vextai scientists ran from their posts, following emergency protocols. In the confusion, Dr. Nerevek opened the habitat doors. "Now," Samantha called to the others. "Stay together." The 6 humans raced through the corridors, following the path they had memorized. 2 Vextai guards appeared ahead. Grace fired the paralyzing weapon, dropping them instantly. "Control room is 1 level up," Samantha said, pointing to a lift. "Once we're there, we can seal the doors and take control of the ship." As they reached the lift, Commander Veller's voice boomed over the announcement system. "Security breach in research wing. All specimens must be contained. This is not a drill." The humans exchanged determined looks. There was no going back now. The lift doors closed just as a group of Vextai security officers rounded the corner. Samantha punched the control panel with Dr. Nerevek's access code, and the lift began to rise. "They'll be waiting for us at the top," Alan warned, his breath coming in short gasps. "No," Dr. Nerevek said. "Control room has small crew during sleep cycle. 2, maybe 3 officers only." The lift slowed as it reached the upper level. Grace readied the paralyzing weapon, while Paul and William positioned themselves on either side of the door. When the lift opened, they moved with surprising coordination. Grace fired at the single guard stationed by the monitors. He dropped before he could raise an alarm. The second guard reached for a weapon, but Paul tackled him to the ground while William used a Vextay tool to deliver a small electric shock that left the alien unconscious. "Clear," Paul called. Samantha rushed to the main control panel. The symbols and controls were complex, but she recognized the navigation system from the diagrams she had studied. "Linda, watch the door," she ordered. "William, see if you can lock it from inside." Dr. Naravek moved to another panel. "Ship security coming. Need to block doors." Working together, Samantha and the alien scientist managed to seal all entrances to the control room. On the security monitors, they could see confused Vextai gathering outside, trying to override the locks. "How long will those hold?" Grace asked. "Not long," Dr. Naravek admitted. "Commander has override codes." Samantha nodded grimly. "Then we work fast. I need to change our course back to Earth and lock out any attempts to change it again." Her fingers flew over the alien controls. Years of engineering work and weeks of careful study now paid off as she navigated the ship's systems. She couldn't read all the Vextay language, but she understood enough of the command structure to identify the navigation protocols. "There!" she exclaimed as the main view screen showed their course changing. The massive ship began to turn, its engines humming with increased power. A voice boomed through the communication system. "This is Commander Velor. Return control of the vessel immediately or face severe consequences." Samantha pressed the response button. "This is Samantha Wright. Your ship is now under human control. We're setting course for Earth." "Impossible," came the outraged reply. "No primitive could operate Vextay technology." "Guess I'm not as primitive as you thought," Samantha said with satisfaction. "Now, here are our terms. All humans are to be gathered and brought to the main hall. No one will be harmed. When we reach Earth, you will release us, and then you can continue on your way." There was a long silence. Then, "Security teams are cutting through the doors now. You have nowhere to go." Dr. Naravek looked at the security feed with alarm. "They speak truth. Door will fail in minutes." Samantha smiled. "Let them come." She turned to the others. "Get ready for company, but don't worry. They won't take back the ship." "How can you be so sure?" Alan asked, his face pale with fear. Samantha pointed to a set of controls she had just finished adjusting. "Because I've locked the life support systems to our control. If they try to take over, I'll shut down oxygen to every part of the ship except this room." William whistled. "You'd hold the entire crew hostage." "They held us hostage first," Samantha replied firmly. "But it won't come to that. The Vextay are logical. They'll see that cooperation is their best option." A loud bang echoed through the control room as the security team began cutting through the door. Sparks flew from the metal as the cutting tool made progress. Dr. Naravek looked at Samantha with new respect. "You very different from what Vextai believe about humans." "All of us are," Samantha said, gesturing to the other humans who stood ready to defend their position. "That's the point your people missed. We aren't defined by our technology or where we choose to live. We're defined by our ability to adapt, to solve problems, to work together." The door began to glow red-hot as the cutting tool neared completion of its task. "Get ready," Samantha told her companions. "One way or another, we're going home." The door to the control room burst open in a shower of sparks and metal. 6 Vextay security officers rushed in, weapons raised. Behind them stood Commander Velor, his tall frame radiating anger. "Stop," Samantha shouted, her hand hovering over the life support controls. "One more step, and I cut off oxygen to the entire ship." The security team froze. Commander Velor moved forward slowly, his large eyes fixed on Samantha. "You would kill everyone aboard?" he asked through his translator. "Including yourselves." "This room has its own air supply," Samantha replied calmly. "We've verified that. We don't want to hurt anyone, but we will not be taken back to your zoo." Commander Velor looked at Dr. Neravek with cold anger. You helped these primitives. Why? The smaller alien straightened her posture. They not primitive. They intelligent. They deserve respect, not cages. Ridiculous, scoffed the commander. They live in wooden shelters. They have barely touched space. Yet here we are, Samantha said, controlling your ship. A tense silence filled the room. The humans stood together, nervous but determined. The Vexte security team waited for orders, weapons still pointed at the humans. Finally, Commander Velor spoke. What do you want? Samantha took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been planning for. First, all humans on this ship will be gathered here, unharmed. Second, you will transport us back to Earth and release us. Third, you will share medical knowledge that can help our people. Your scanners have data on human diseases. We want that information. The commander's face was unreadable. And if we agree, then no one gets hurt, Samantha said. You can continue your research on other species, but humans are off limits unless you approach us properly, as equals, not specimens. Commander Velor turned to one of his officers and spoke in rapid Vextai. The officer hurried from the room. I have ordered all humans to be brought here, he said, but the other demands must be approved by the High Council. Then call them, Samantha insisted. The commander touched a control on his uniform. A large screen on the wall flickered to life, showing 3 elderly Vexte sitting at a curved table. Their skin was paler than the other aliens, and they wore elaborate robes with complex patterns. Commander Velor explained the situation. The council members listened without interruption, their expressions impossible for Samantha to read. When he finished, the center council member spoke. This is unprecedented. No species has ever commandeered a Vexte vessel. There's a first time for everything, Samantha replied. The council member on the left leaned forward. Why should we negotiate with lesser beings who have stolen our property? Samantha's patience snapped. Because this lesser being now controls whether your crew lives or dies. Because we were kidnapped from our homes against our will. And because any species that judges others by their technology rather than their character is truly primitive. There was a shocked silence. Even the other humans looked at Samantha with surprise. Then, remarkably, the center council member made a sound that the translator identified as laughter. The human female speaks with unusual directness, refreshing after centuries of protocol. The right council member nodded slowly. Perhaps we have misjudged this species. More Vextai entered the control room, escorting 7 additional humans, 3 women and 4 men of various ages, all looking confused and afraid until they saw the other humans standing free. Samantha felt a surge of hope. The council was listening. The other humans were safe. They had a real chance now. We will consider your demands, the center council member announced. Commander Velor will ensure no harm comes to the humans while we deliberate. The screen went dark. Commander Velor looked at Samantha with newfound respect. You have surprised us all today, human. I begin to think there is much about Earth we do not understand. That, said Samantha with a small smile, is exactly the point. 3 days later, the Vextai Mothership entered Earth's orbit. On the view screen, the blue planet looked beautiful and fragile against the blackness of space. The High Council had accepted all of Samantha's demands after hours of discussion. The humans would be returned to Earth, and the Vextai would share medical information that could help cure several human diseases. Most importantly, they signed an agreement recognizing Earth as a protected planet that could only be approached through proper diplomatic channels. Earth's military detected the massive alien ship as soon as it entered orbit. Panicked calls went out across the globe. Fighter jets scrambled. Nuclear weapons were put on alert. They think we're invading, Alan said, watching the activity on the ship's monitors. Samantha nodded. We need to let them know we come in peace. She turned to Commander Velor. Can we send a message to Earth? The commander touched several controls. Channel open to all Earth communication networks. Samantha took a deep breath and spoke clearly. This is Samantha Wright, citizen of Earth. I am aboard an alien vessel with 12 other humans who were taken from Earth for study. We have negotiated our return and come in peace. I repeat, we come in peace." She paused, then added, "to verify my humanity. The current president is in office. The Super Bowl was won by the Kansas City Chiefs. The latest smartphone model has 3 cameras. We are humans returning home." The response was immediate. Messages flooded in from military commanders, government officials, and news organizations around the world. After initial skepticism, a landing site was arranged in a remote desert area in Nevada, surrounded by military forces. As the ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, Samantha stood with her fellow humans near the exit door. Some cried with relief. Others prayed. All looked nervous but happy. "What will happen to you?" Samantha asked Dr. Neravec, who stood nearby. The alien's translator conveyed a tone of pride. "I am new ambassador to Earth. First official contact between our worlds." Commander Velor approached, looking uncomfortable. "High Council wishes to extend formal apology to humans for improper collection methods. He hesitated. "We made error in judgment." Samantha smiled. "That's a good start." The ship landed with barely a bump despite its enormous size. Outside, hundreds of military vehicles surrounded the landing site. Helicopters circled overhead. News crews broadcasted live to billions of people watching worldwide. The exit ramp extended. Sunlight, real Earth sunlight, streamed into the ship for the first time in months. Linda took Samantha's hand and squeezed it. "You did it. You really got us home." "We all did it," Samantha replied. Together. The humans walked down the ramp in a group, blinking in the bright desert sun. Medical teams rushed forward to check them. Military officers maintained a cautious distance. Cameras flashed everywhere. Dr. Neravec and Commander Velor followed, causing soldiers to raise their weapons. "They're with us," Samantha called out quickly. "They're here as representatives of the Vexte people." A general stepped forward. "Ms. Wright, I'm General Martinez. On behalf of all nations, welcome home." And he looked up at the towering aliens. "We welcome our visitors." In the days that followed, the world changed forever. The existence of intelligent alien life was confirmed. The medical knowledge shared by the Vexte led to treatments for several previously incurable diseases. A new era of diplomatic relations began. The former captives returned to their families, celebrated as heroes. Many gave interviews about their experiences. Some wrote books. Others preferred to return quietly to their normal lives. Samantha declined all offers for books and movies about her story. Instead, she accepted a position as Earth's chief advisor on Vexte relations. Her engineering background and first-hand experience made her uniquely qualified. One evening, 6 months after their return, Samantha sat with Dr. Neravec on the porch of her rebuilt cabin in the Appalachian woods. "Your people still find it strange I choose to live here?" she asked, sipping her tea. The alien looked at the sunset filtering through the trees. "Less strange now, beginning to understand different ways to be advanced." Samantha smiled. "That's progress." Above them, the stars began to appear, no longer mysterious, but full of new possibilities.